Welcome to Sacramento Regional Builders Exchange Podcast, Political Construction Zone, where we bridge politics and policies impacting the construction industry here in California. I am your host, Damon Conklin, Director of Governmental Affairs at SRBX. Californians in November will be considering 12 propositions, including repealing the gas tax, allowing local governments to impose rent control on residential housing, and weigh in on billions of dollars worth of ballot measures for children's hospitals and low-income housing. One such initiative is Proposition 1. Today, our guest, Laine Himmelmann, Director of Development for Habitat for Humanity of Greater Sacramento, is here to help us better understand Proposition 1 and what is at stake. Laine, welcome, and please tell our listeners a little bit about your organization and what you do there.
Sure. So I work for Habitat for Humanity of Greater Sacramento. We are a locally and non-governmentally supported nonprofit that's part of Habitat for Humanity International. So we help build and repair homes for families, seniors, and veterans in need.
Fabulous. So, every Californian recognizes that there is a housing crisis. Last year, the legislature introduced a package of housing bills that have made some changes, and this year, there were additional legislative efforts to ignite the housing industry. But as I understand it, statewide, we have annual production of about 85,000 units. And with a state population of about 39 million people and 17 million homes, we're building about 100,000 units shy of where we need to be. Is that a fair estimation?
Yes, that's a fair estimation. And I believe we are 49th out of 50 states in housing production per capita. So we're very behind the ball in providing enough homes for those that live in the state of California.
And how many homes do you know are being built in the Sacramento area, or at least in Northern California? Is that been aggregated? Do we have any kind of breakdown of the immediate area of what the need is, at least?
I'm only aware of the amount of homes per the state. However, I can tell you that, from Habitat's perspective, the need is great. This year, we had a record-breaking number of families apply for our homeownership program. And to put it in perspective, we build about 6 to 8 homes a year because we're currently running on less than 2% government funding. So all of the funds that we use to build our homes as well as do our repair projects for seniors and veterans are from donated dollars as well as sales from our restore. So we build about 6 to 8 homes a year. We had over 1,000 inquiries from families who are interested in our homeownership program and about another 1,000 inquiries, seniors and veterans that were interested in our repairs program to provide critical repairs to help them to stay in their homes.
Got it. I think we can all agree that it's going to take much more than just dollars to solve California's housing crisis. Regulations need to be streamlined. There needs to be policies to be realigned to steer development into areas that we can accommodate higher density. And more communities need to be open to accepting growth as part of their master plans. But I agree. Public investment needs to be part of the equation. Can you tell us a little bit about the mechanics of Prop 1 and what it would mean to the Sacramento area?
Yeah, and absolutely. Just to speak on that as far as investment goes, if you look at, there's a variety of reasons that we're in this housing crisis, but if you look at our state budget from the last couple of years since the governor did away with the redevelopment dollars back in 2011, I want to say, we have only been investing 0.0036% directly into housing from the statewide budget, which with a budget of $179 billion, that equates to about $644,000 a year.
You bring up a great point. A lot of people will point to the state budget being, at historic levels of $200 billion and a reserve of over $12 billion. But we forget that the redevelopment and those programs were terminated, and the critical dollars that would be directed towards affordable housing has since gone away.
Right, and so I think it's it's a slow catalyzation, but we've really hit critical need to where now, the vulnerable populations are always the one that are hit first, and that's going to be your low-income families, your seniors, your veterans, people with disabilities. But now it's to the point where everyone is really feeling the pain of the housing crisis, to those who have elder parents who are struggling to find a place that they can afford to rent, or maybe they're struggling with, critical maintenance needs and they can afford their mortgage, but they can't afford the $15,000 to fix their roof to keep them from being displaced and out on the streets. And even myself personally, as a young professional who's was born and raised here in Sacramento, I worry about my ability to ever be able to afford a home, which makes me really sad. Right now, 1 in 3 Californians can't afford their rent or housing costs, and the homeownership rate's at its lowest since 1940. So I think Prop 1 is very needed. I don't think it's a silver bullet that's going to...
But it's part of the equation.
100%. And I think it's a huge step in the right direction and could make some really incredible change for many hardworking families and veterans who are currently struggling to be able to live in the state of California.
Now, I know California, being the nation's most populous state, largest state, we also are home to over a quarter of the homelessness or homeless in the country. Can you talk a little bit about Sacramento region? And I mean, I think everybody has seen an uptick of the homelessness or the presence of those without homes in and around the downtown grid and around our communities. Can you speak a little bit about what Habitat for Humanity is doing, and how you're bridging those gaps and making sure that there's eligible or qualified families are able to put a roof over their head?
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, with Prop 1, we're looking at it from a statewide perspective. But if you look at Sacramento, just over the last couple of years, we've seen, rent and housing prices skyrocketing to the point where we have the highest rising rents in the entire country here in Sacramento. I think our rents have risen in the double digits the last 3 years. And it's really because of a matter of lack of housing production. And so with that, there's been a lot of gentrification in our low-income neighborhoods, such as Oak Park, where there's been a huge uptick in code violations, and with that, in conjunction with that, senior homelessness. And so something that we're trying to do at Habitat, in addition to continuing to build homes in partnership with low-income families and provide that home ownership opportunity, is also focus on those seniors and veterans who are living in those low-income neighborhoods that are currently being gentrified, and providing critical repairs so that they can stay in their homes. And what's happening a lot is someone is moving into, say, Oak Park, and they see the house across the street and it's falling apart, and they call code violation.
Right.
But what they don't realize is that the person living in that house might be a senior who's lived in there for 3 decades, and they can afford their mortgage, but they can't afford $10,000 or $15,000 to fix their roof. And as we all know, with a roof, if you don't address it, it just gets worse. It doesn't get better. And eventually, what will happen is it'll become an unlivable home to where code enforcement is forced to kick that person out. And so we're really trying to proactively address the homeless situation by providing those critical repairs to keep people in their homes, because not only is it terrifying if you're a senior to be addressed with the fact that you may be on the streets, rather than being able to age with dignity in your own home, where you feel safe, where you can afford, but it's also a huge strain on the community. We were meeting with Jeff Harris recently, and he said that every homeless person costs the city of Sacramento anywhere from $100,000 to $1 million every year. So that's a pretty big range. I think it varies on the individual, but
those are big numbers.
Those are big numbers, and not to mention the quality of life. And I think about some of the projects we've done. We did a project recently for a veteran living in Elk Grove, and he was a 74-year-old Vietnam veteran. His name was Santiago Bonilla, and he was living in a home where he's lived for over 30 years, and his roof had holes in it the size that you could throw basketballs through, and because it hadn't been addressed for several years, there was black mold, there was termites. It was just really a horrendous situation for anyone to be living in, but especially someone who's a senior and a veteran. And so we were able to bring together community partners to go in and provide him with a safe home that was wheelchair accessible, because he has type 2 diabetes from Agent Orange in the war. And so now he's able to move around his home, breathe freely, age in place, and that's really what all of our seniors deserve.
So if the voters in November support Prop 1, what will that mean to the Sacramento area as far as dollars and resources, and how will that help your efforts?
Sure. So Prop 1 is it's a $4 billion bond measure to help fund housing related programs. $1 billion would go directly to help veterans housing through CalVet. The largest chunk, $1.5 billion, would provide loans for construction, rehabilitation, and preserving of rental housing for low income families. For us at Habitat and Habitat for Humanity of California, all 42 local Habitat affiliates, of which our Greater Sacramento affiliate is one, are publicly endorsing the prop. $300 million of the $4 billion bond measure would directly replenish the Cal Home program, which is a program that we were previously able to receive funds from to the tune of about $65,000 a Habitat home to help with construction of that project. And so if Prop 1 were to pass and the Cal Home program then was replenished, we would be able to double the amount of homes that we build for low-income working families here in Sacramento, as well as across the state of California.
That's huge. I mean, that's a 100% increase.
Right. And I think something that's important for people to really recognize about Prop 1 is that it's providing sustainable funding for housing solutions. If you look at the CalVet program and the $1 billion of the $4 billion bond measure that would be going to that, CalVet provides home loan opportunities for veterans who then pay back CalVet through their mortgage, and then more home loans are provided for other veterans. So it really continues to pay it forward. And with an organization like Habitat for Humanity, that's an empowerment program, not an entitlement program. So our families are purchasing their homes from us for a 0% interest 30-year mortgage, which then goes into a revolving fund for more Habitat for Humanity projects to provide those opportunities for other low-income families in need. So when you're voting yes on Prop 1, it's not just throwing money at a one-time solution. It's really providing opportunities for sustainable funding for homeownership for Californians.
That's a great point. Thanks. Okay, so what can our SRBX members do? How can they help?
So there isn't a ton of opposition to Prop 1. There's a slew of endorsers, literally hundreds and hundreds of endorsers from Habitat for Humanity, the State Building and Construction Trades Council, to veterans groups, business, environmental, labor, and support associations. The biggest concern about Prop 1 passing is just voter confusion and voter unawareness. So one of the biggest ways that you can help support Prop 1 and all of the working families and veterans and seniors that it would support would be to help spread the word about Prop 1 and really advocate for it, as well as, of course, voting yes this November.
Yeah, I mean, education is so key. Obviously, midterm elections, there's a lot of confusion with 12 propositions out there, ranging from rent control to affordable housing to you name it, and I think it's so important for people to fully understand what they're voting on and the pros and cons for each of those. So really appreciate you taking the time to share with us a little bit about Prop 1 and how it would help in doubling your efforts here in the local area. Before I close, Laine, thank you so much for sharing with us a little bit about Prop 1. Where can people learn a little bit more about Habitat and what you guys are doing?
They can go to our website, habitatgreatersac.org, follow us on Facebook at Habitat Greater Sac, or on Twitter and Instagram at Sac Habitat.
Perfect. Thank you so much for joining us. We hope that you found this edition of Political Construction Zone informative. Wanted to bring a couple of events to your attention. On November 8th, here at SRBX, we're having a panel discussion on building school facilities with representatives from local school districts, as well as the state architect, state allocation board, and California Department of Education to discuss what contractors need to know when building school facilities. Also, we have on November 15th, a Women in Construction luncheon and workshop. We have a panel of industry experts discussing a wide range of topics that attendees will undoubtedly find not only educational, but inspirational too. To find out more, please go to srbx.org, select the calendar event tab to find out more about these events and to register. Thank you for listening.